Greetings, everybody. Keith here. Hoping everybody's having a good day, enjoying life, living life, loving life. Coming to you tonight with the same issue, a new incident in regards to trying to accomplish things today when I went down to the post office to have this sent off to the Office of Inspector General and the Board of Governors, and they refused to send it as I directed. So what they did again was make a legal determination at the local post office as it relates to their understanding and comprehension of their own policies and the terms therein used. And they keep insisting everything is domestic. And therefore they wouldn't allow me to use international mail where I could insure it. So again, there's an offer by the Postal Service, United States Postal Service, as the registered agent to provide international mail. That's an open offer. But because they make the legal determination, now they're liable. Because if I make the legal determination and I want to pay for the insurance and it goes, but they send it back, that's between me and them. And obviously, they're supposed to be able to send it back and let me know of any errors. That's not for the local postal service to negate. That's called dishonor, because they're not competent to understand the very language that they're supposed to understand as communication specialists. So before we start out, I want to pull up a nice little document that I pulled up before in regards to the warrant officer postal criteria. Okay. This is where we find out that every post office is an inland marine installation. It's a military base. And before we get on with it, I want to remind everybody to please hit that like, share, and subscribe button. If you're on Hecklebus, get over to El Perro and do the same. If you're on El Perro, get over to Hecklebus, hit that like, share, and subscribe button. The links for the PayPal and all that, that's down below. And these links here, these are going to have to be added because these are extra links that I'm going to go over tonight. It's going to be more than the 1 hour. So please grab your notebooks or at least pretend that you're going to review the video. But in the meantime, at least hit the like, share, and subscribe. Help me out. Help the algorithm out. And get this out to people that really do need it and do want it. Please. So as we see before us, it says very clearly, postal officers must possess good communication skills orally and in writing to effectively resolve customer issues and represent the commanding general. Who is the commanding general within the Office of Inspector Generals involved in federal investigations so that they can inspect the record and the supplemental facts being sent but aren't getting those supplemental facts? Again, like I mentioned in the video earlier and yesterday in regards to Kimberly Hall and her getting the law department involved with a form that had nothing with the supplemental facts on it. Therefore, they didn't get all of the information that I presented. And then she closed the case as if though she was able to make that legal determination by going to a legal department. This is not a lawsuit. It doesn't provide you qualified immunity. I gave you knowledge, and you intentionally tried to obstruct and impede the federal investigation by closing the accounting yourself. You have no authority to do so, Kimberly Hall. No one does. I opened it. I'm the one that created that accounting. They must be trustworthy. Trustworthy to manage postal retail operations and be proficient with Marine Corps, Department of Defense, and U.S. Postal Service postal policies and regulations. Why do you think I look up the Admiralty Maritime laws as it relates to the Lieber Code, martial law? And it's a matter of national security. And the original issue is departmental regulations of the Department of Defense. They're applicable to the Department of Defense. Within that one code, 5 U.S.C. 301, departmental regulations applicable to the Department of Defense, wherein the minimum birth registration requirements are noted and the Plain Writing Act is noted. And like I said, on this very site, you can see, again, it comes from the headquarters of Marine Corps. I was instructed to talk to the headquarters of the United States Postal Service, and it's being obstructed and impeded because somebody doesn't know how to communicate orally or in writing when both cases were presented to him. And rather than do so as he's supposed to be qualified, again, means he does not have qualified immunity because he's not qualified. And so instead of appropriately communicating, he called the local police, who has no current local or interlocal agreement with the Postal Service. As far as I know, it expired June 30th of 2023. I do not find any current one. Either way, even if he did have an interlocal agreement, he passed on data elements saying that he had a sovereign citizen based upon the fact that I told him I was neither a United States citizen nor a resident, placing supplemental facts orally into a record, as I've done many times. In public forums. So it is a public record. And you don't need to file a Freedom of Information Act for it. I'll show you where it's at. And if I can't find it, I'll repeat it over and over and over and over and over. I will not lie. It is impossible to be a United States citizen if they maintain no statehood or nationality. It is only a posed nationality. Postal Affairs Distribution List, recommended warrant officer postal criteria. Again, it's a warrant officer and they are issuing warrants because they are incompetent and don't know the word. summary. Therefore, it's been declared, and here it is summarized, but has never been finalized, ever. Postal officers are special staff officers who manage postal operations and postal service support at Marine Corps installations worldwide. So while they are at Marine Corps installations providing support, supplemental portage. The original port is Marine Corps authority. They do not have the authority to be inland unless they get it from the Marine Corps. This is known throughout the annals of time. And during contingency operations. Martial law chiefly affects the police and the collection of public revenue and taxes. So by him offering a record and the dispatcher, remember we spoke about dispatch the other day, took that record through his conversion, his falsification, and knowing intent to obstruct me and impede me from sending international documentation through diplomatic channels of notice. He violated the duty, not the right, but the duty. The first duty in law is to give legal notice. That is what he is impeding and obstructing. They serve as installation official mail managers, special staff officers to the commanding general. So what are they demanding? Liaison to the Military Postal Service Agency and local U.S. Postal Service postmasters for all postal related issues. Notice, postal is in plain writing. And when you post something, that means it is effective postal. It is a postal issue. It has to do with AL, a connector to the root word post. Jeremiah 31:51. One post shall run to meet another post, messenger to messenger, shewing unto the king of Babylon that the city has fallen at the other end. And conduct post office inspections and audits. And rather than involve himself in the inspection as one of those mail managers, knowingly with supplemental information, converted the information of not being a United States citizen and not being a resident to a false term, sovereign citizen. And what we read prior to opening this window was this statement here. Postal officers must possess good communication skills, orally and in writing, to effectively resolve customer issues and represent the commanding general. They must be trustworthy, and they cannot coin their words, so they better start pursing their lips. And I remind you, folks, I play no games. To manage postal retail operations and be proficient as it relates to being efficient. FIC. Future Making, the act of making something in the future. Proficient. Efficient. The act of made. It's already done. It is efficient. They found inefficiencies in technology in the Postal Service. That's why they've been having all of these worker union uprisings. Prerequisites: must have a secret security clearance. They are clearance officers, and they must clear the information that is being warranted. If the information is false, it is not warranted, and they have stepped outside of their jurisdiction by using babble. Have no record of derogatory or unfavorable conduct that casts doubt on the officer's trustworthiness and honesty. That is set in record now. Have no history of psychiatric disorder, alcoholism, or drug abuse. Jack Talcott, it matters not what your position was. It not matters what your name is. It matters on what you do. You fucking alcoholic. Man up to it. Shut it down and start acting like a man as a living soul. Every breath you take, you better learn how to coin your words or purse your fucking lips. Unless a medical evaluation determines the condition no longer exists. Have no convictions by court-martial, Uniform Code of Military Justice, punishment for postal-related offenses within the last 3 years, or civilian convictions other than minor traffic violations. So you can see how the martial law travels all the way down to traffic violations. And as you saw, we saw the freedom of transit is guaranteed throughout the entire territory of the Union, wherein the Constitution of the United States proclaims to form a more perfect union. In the video earlier, I showed you a postal constitution with from an interlocal governmental agreement through the labor union about how to use the same statement in their constitution. The states use the same statement in their constitutions to form a more perfect union, wherein that union is a unit of unity, and it's been converted to united rather than being postal units by address and other enumerations that are key to identifications. They are combinations in collaboration. Complete the Postal Supervisor course at Fort Jackson, South Carolina. This course can be completed after Warrant Officer Basic Course. I want to know if he's been through that, because if he's not, if he hasn't, then it proves by the record that he's not competent. I want to know how many of these Postal Service workers that are stepping up in a fiduciary capacity and are not competent to communicate appropriately. Postmasters for all related issues and conduct post office inspections and audits. Postal officers. So it's not a matter of the postmasters, it's postal officers. And they all hold the position within the post office as registered agents through the United States Postal Service. I want to greet everybody. Thank you for joining. I appreciate all of your support and help. Please hit that like, share, and subscribe button. Racid Piranha Divine, greetings. Wobbly Boost, Steve, greetings. The link is there if anybody wants to join. Aaron, greetings. Those are the only people I see. But most people are Thinking I started at 8. I started early because we're going to go for a while. I've got a lot of content to cover, and I need to speed it up. And today we had some events happen that created some incident. He was trying to use incitations, much like incontinent. It's very disgusting. Let's put it that way. Anyway, let's continue on, because the next one I want to go to is something that somebody sent me today. They tagged me in it on Facebook, and it's our brother from Kingdom of Netherlands that was asking a question last night as it relates to the codes, and I told him it's uniform throughout all jurisdictions. It's a military operation known as martial law, and it's done through the post offices, and they get their authority from the Marines and the Coast Guard, departments of the Navy. When it comes to communications, it's a matter of intellect. I tell people quite often, a man's intellect is limited and biased by his own vocabulary. So if you don't know what you're speaking, it shows your limitations and your bias in your very language. Anyway, many of you heard me state Jeremiah 1:5 of the King James Version of the Bible. This is the NIV, the New International Version of the King James Bible, or International Version of the Bible. And this is Jeremiah 4-19. And it says, the word of the Lord came to me saying, before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I set you apart. I set you apart. As set. This is the as set. Okay? I appointed you as a prophet unto the nations. Alas, sovereign Lord. Alas, sovereign Lord. Alas, sovereign Lord. I said, I do not know how to speak. I am too young. But the Lord said to me, do not say I am too young. You must go to everyone I send you to and say whatever I command you. Do not be afraid of them, for I am with you and will rescue you, declares the Lord. That's the declaration. The custom declaration. Then the Lord reached out his hand and touched my mouth and said unto me, I have put my words in your mouth. See, today I appoint you over nations so that you can pass through them, and kingdoms to uproot and tear down, to destroy, overthrow, to build, and to plant. Shewing unto the king of Babylon that his city is fallen. The word of the Lord came to me. What do you see, Jeremiah? I see a branch of an almond tree. I replied. The Lord said to me, you have seen correctly. Correctly. For I am watching. To see that my word is fulfilled. The word of the Lord came to me again. What do you see? I see a pot that is boiling, I answered. It is tilling toward us from the north. The Lord said to me, from the north, disaster will be poured out on all who live in the land. All who live in the land. Did you take upon an engraven image? And were you laid in a grave, and then a ledge stone was placed upon you, being ledgered, wearing a headstone? Had the name engraved on it, in it. The kings will come and set up their thrones in the entrance of the gates of Jerusalem. They will come against all her surrounding walls and against all the towns of Judah. I will pronounce my judgments on people because their wickedness in forsaking me, in burning incense to other gods, and in worshiping what their hands have made. See, I'm not worshiping what my hands make. I'm using my hands to make true the word of God that it was put in my heart. I will that thou constantly affirm that they which have believed in the word of the Lord are good and profitable unto men. Get yourself ready. Stand up and say to them whatever I command you. Do not be terrified by them, or I will terrify you before them. That's the fear of the Lord. If you don't stand up, you sit in those shadows on panels and chats, running your mouth full of blasphemy. And then you turn around and do it in any public venue because you got the support of your brother, because that's what you believe. You believe your brother is right without any self-discernment yourself. Today I have made, it's already made, you a fortified city, an iron pillar, and a bronze wall to stand against the whole land. That's the shield. Every word of God is pure. He is a shield unto them that put their trust in God, against the kings of Judah, its officials, its priests, and the people of the land. They will fight against you, but will not overcome you, for I am with you and will rescue you, declares the Lord. And this is why I talk about the Unum Sanctum and the Pope and his blasphemy, claiming the living souls of all men. Isaiah 43:1, fear not, for I have redeemed thee. The redemption's already been made. I have called thee by thy name, thou art mine. Reaffirmed by declaring that one is to say, I am the Lord's. One shall call himself by the name of Jacob, and another shall subscribe with his hand unto the Lord, and surname himself by the name of Israel. What don't you get? Gratitude expressed for Keith Little. All glory goes to God. Gratitude. Pleasing. Thankful. Gracious. Tude. The effect on the rest of the word, creating the action of being thankful. It's called credit too. Gratitude. The quality of being thankful. Readiness to show appreciation for and to return. Kindness. In like kind. Image and likeness. She expressed her gratitude to the committee for their support. Notice this is Oxford Languages Dictionary. Similar. We just went over that too, didn't we? Travel. Gratefulness, thankfulness, thanks, appreciation, recognition, acknowledgement, hat tip, credit. Regard, respect, sense of obligation, indebtedness. the condition of owing money, the feeling of gratitude for a service or favor. And it's only by the providence of his grace, wherein he gave me the breath of life, breathing that breath of life into my nostrils, wherein man became a living soul. You fucking animals. Yeah, this is more of a rant tonight, but rather than being a war rant, it's a peace rant. So I appreciate your taking the time to consider my passion and the anger being expressed. So let's go back. All right. Well, I guess that's the end of that part. So now I want to go to another part. In the video earlier, I explained about how I'm trying to access international judicial assistance. And we discussed briefly obtaining evidence. Discovery. They are covering things up and not allowing me to patent things, make them observable. They are latent issues, and there are supplemental facts that needed to be added in order to discover other things, whether it be rules in foreign countries, which are frequently very different from the rules that apply in the United States. And again, the United States is merely a record in Washington, D.C. This section provides general information on methods that are available to get evidence. I have the evidence. I'm trying to provide it as a favor in peace. And they're not allowing it. Depose, in other words, deposition witnesses, and arrange for live testimony overseas. Did you undertake something and somebody has to oversee your duties and obligations? How much do I need to explain this? Including country specific as it relates to specifications of special directives because of a variance in species, money, or its equivalent. Control and entry or possession and use. One is 9/10 of the law. The other is 1/10. The holder of the 1/10, known as legal title, is the liable party. The administrative record is dismissing liability and putting it on you because you haven't taken the age of majority by presumption and transferred the title to the Postal Service with expenses incidental to transfer of that title. This is the case with all titles. They should be held by the judicial officer making the judicial determinations so that the record is complete and not false with millions, if not billions of data elements that were entered in error. Preparation of letters rogatory. Disclaimer: the information relating to the legal requirements of specific foreign countries is provided for general information only. It may not be totally accurate in a particular case. This is the same thing with any other copyright disclaimer. They're telling you have to check the information from the original source, the foreign country that is foreign to the domestic. They're insisting that their domestic policy is accurate, and I'm telling them it's not. How do I know? Because I said I'm not a United States citizen, nor am I a resident. By their own policy, it says a resident. The only persons allowed to reside within the zone are federal, state, or municipal officers or agents whose resident presence is deemed necessary by the board. Show me where that was deemed necessary. Otherwise, the record in its entirety is inaccurate. Not accurate. Not correct. And remember what I said about a prophet is one who interprets the word and speaks for God. Questions involving interpretation of specific foreign laws. These are not foreign laws. Public Law 97-280. Wherein Ronald Reagan professed that the very foundation of the scriptures is the very foundation of the supreme law of the land, therefore supplementally coming first. They are the superior law of the land. And they only have credit by spirituality. You have to come in spirit to express the spiritual intent of the letter of the law. This goes to the merits. Remember, merits is spiritual credit. Very simple term. We're going to go over that later on. Should be addressed to foreign attorneys. Attorneys can only represent what? Corporations, body orations. The literal word, the letter of the law, but its spiritual intent is the oration of your body, the manual expression through a voice, which is called invoice. And this is why I say coin the words, coin your words, or purse the lips, purse your lips. This circular seeks only to provide information. It is not an opinion on any aspect of U.S., foreign, or international law. The U.S. Department of State does not intend by the contents of this circular to take a position. Therefore, the U.S. Department of State, a person, by noun, which is a definition, it is not a place. The U.S. Department of State is by definition a noun describing a person, an entity, not a place or a thing. Does not intend by the contents of the circular to take a position. I'm telling you through private messaging, private discussions. I know of one neighbor that has communicated that such debt with the Homeland Security and Department of Defense through a redress, and they gave a redress number under a statement that says they could neither admit nor deny. You people are making all the false claims. And then when somebody like me comes along and tries to correct that false claim, 98% of you are caught up in so much cognitive dissonance of the very language that is not correct. You're speaking babble. And I'm sick of it. Pathetic. Disgusting. Now we're going to take a look at administrative review of loss of nationality determination. I don't care what you fucking determine. Determ. What's a term? Did you get a term in office? What are those contracts and terms of conditions? Terms, are they times? Administrative review of loss of nationality determination. I was never granted the nationality because it's impossibility. You could call it a United States nationality through a United States citizenship, but if there's no birth registration, lodging such nationals into any record, then prove how I am a United States citizen. It's impossible. There is no such logs recorded anywhere. In accordance with 22 CFR 50.51 and 7 Foreign Affairs Manual 1230, the department may, in its discretion, review determinations of loss of nationality upon request at any time after issuance or denial of the certificate of loss of nationality to ensure consistency with governing law. To ensure consistency with governing law. The law that governs them is the letter of the law as they see it through their codes, statutes, codes, rules, policies, regulations, and such. Again, public law, which is their governing law, 97-280, 1984, President Reagan declared Year of the Bible, noticing the world in that publication in the international forum that anyone can review, explaining how the scriptures of the 1611 King James Version of the Bible and other scriptures, Apocrypha and everything, the origins of those scriptures are authenticated because they have stood in time almost immeasurably. The grounds upon which the department will consider reversing a finding of loss of nationality, I find that there is no nationality. What about that finding? Why don't we redress and address that so that the statement of nationality can be redressed? And vacating a CLN are set forth in 22 CFR 50.51B. The most common scenario is one in which the person requesting review presents substantial new evidence not previously considered of one, either involuntariness, it is deemed necessary by the board, never happened. Lack of intent to relinquish U.S. citizen. I have no intent to relinquish U.S. citizenship that doesn't exist. That's insanity. At the time of the potentially expatriating act, The same code B4, critically consistent with 7 FAM 1236D, all such evidence must relate to the time when the potentially expatriating act was performed and not to a subsequent charge of heart. Change of heart. Must relate to the time when the potentially expatriating act. It was a false entry into a record, an error in entry into the record, creating a patriotism. My next of kin is not my Father which art in heaven. My next of kin, kind, is my mom. That's where I was rendered. The record before that was the surrendering of data elements that should have never been entered into the record. Involuntariness may be demonstrated by evidence of duress, coercion, or undue influence to commit potentially expatriating act. Lack of requisite intent to relinquish U.S. citizenship may be demonstrated by evidence that the individual did not have the resolve or intention to lose citizenship. See, everything's absolutely opposite of my intent. Or did not comprehend the consequences of loss. I comprehend the loss, harm, and injury as a consequence of the application of the nationality. Usually due to diminished mental capacity, but mine is an enhanced mental capacity beyond what other people seem to be comprehending. I can explain it to you, but I can't understand it for you. It's an impossibility. That's for you to do. I need you guys to think about this. And real quick, I'm going to remind you again, we're going at it for a while. Tonight is going to be a few hours. I'm on early tonight because there's content that I'm going to go over slowly and surely. So have patience yourself. Realize it's only you that can discern this stuff. So let's go on to the next one. Because we're going to talk about that administrative review. That's the administrative law judge we're talking about. That's reviewing the statistical record from the Bureau of Vital Statistics, which is a separate record and regulated by the Department of Commerce. And the statistics are the data elements. So as it relates to those data elements and judicial determinations in that administrative law judge, the Iowa Judicial Branch. If you guys remember, I put some videos out here in the past, and I mentioned it earlier in today's video about a bench warrant that was issued that had no long title, had no finances, no bond was found, and there were no charges. Yet the Judicial Branch, one of their officers, Andrea J. Dreyer, issued forth or ordered a bond to be issued. And the clerk collaborated in that communication and did so issue a bond for $350. Judicial District Chief Judge Kellyanne LaCarr, Clerk of Court District Court Administrator Lena Height. It says juvenile court office here, but look here. ADA coordinator, Lena Height also. Americans with Disability Act coordinator. My disability is I'm disabled from entering in to the administrative courts because a judicial discretion is need to be made first in order to determine whether I'm a federal, state, or a municipal officer or agent that was deemed necessary by the board so that I could place a public liability in the record through repeated and continuous exposure to the same events or similar events. So let's look at the next one. Because in that judicial branch, we see that it's the chief judge that they mentioned on the prior page, Melissa A. Anderson Sieber, District Court Judge 1B, Thomas A. Bitter, District Court Judge, District 1A, Joel A. Dalrymple. He used to be the district attorney, and Michelle Wagner was the assistant district attorney. And ADA may be assistant district attorney as well. I'm not sure. I guess I should check on that. That's an assumption. So then we have Andrea J. Dreyer. She's the one that ordered the bench warrant, even though no bond was found, no charges, no finances, and no long title. So they created a title in the matter of jury appearance of Keith Orland Little, and they created the subject, including a name or a title. The subject matter was the title. They call it a short title, wherein they claimed there was no long title. Again, no finances, no bond found, and no charges. I believe that's known as entering a false record. Threats, duress, and coercion to bring a man before a court by issuing an order where two or more people caused a sheriff or a police officer, upon being called because somebody else falsely entered into another record that they had a sovereign citizen, because he wouldn't make a false claim and had to make a declaration of the error, the ad hominem, trying to obfuscate the liabilities of a position rather than a name. Keep telling you it's not about the name, it's about the number, because the number is the routing, and it depends upon where you're at in that route, on that path, along the way. Are you walking the way of Jesus? Is that your route? Is that enumerated? And these people all have degrees, law degrees from universities. Okay? Linda Fangman, Alan T. Heavens. Coincidentally, David B. Odekirk presided over the, and notice they call it presiding. So he's the president for the local resident. Okay? The presiding judge for the initial appearance, wherein I was threatened under coercion that they would arrest me again if I didn't appear after the initial arrest alongside the road and putting me in jail. That was the kidnapping of a child of Israel, making merchandise of him without having a proper record, with a judicial determination so that a liability could be placed on the public record, and they did so anyway. I spent 7 years trying to learn this stuff so I could correct that record. I'm not going to let them stop me. Yea, I shall even hate my own life. For if I don't, I am truly not following the way of Christ and sacrificing myself like he did in the process of redemption. I fear not, I have been redeemed. He has called me by thy name. I am his. In all the lands of my possession, I am supposed to grant the redemption, because the land is not sold forever, for he is with me, and it is his land. Laura J. Parrish, another coincidental one. Michael J. Schubot, another coincidental one. David Stout, Richard Stockel, John Sullivan, Monica Zrini Ackley, Patrice J. Eichmann, Mark T. Hostager, Brooke Jacobson, Lene Marie Nelson Nicole, Stephanie C. Rottenborg, Robert J. Richter, Michelle Wagner. Michelle Wagner has moved up the line, August of 2021. 5 years after entering a document, lodging a document with the local clerk of court to appoint a judge. So through that inspiration, they both conspired, and appointed a judge to preside over the case, titled Keith Orland Little as a defendant, and then demanded that I appear in court, saying they had proper service, when that was not had through the diplomatic channels of notice known as the post office. See that road? That's also a needful place or building known as a postal road. Article 1, Section 8, Clause 7 of the Constitution. So anyway, Michelle Wagner lodged that record, false record, with the clerk of courts, who then appointed a judge who presided over the case. And gave a sentence, ordered a sentence, and allowed them to take me away in handcuffs after they made merchandise of one of the children of God through entitlement. She received her undergraduate by undertaking knowledge from other people. Yea, they will have taken away the key of knowledge. The key is the combination in the locking, the routing. Degree from Wartburg College in 2001. 2001, here it is, 22 years later. And I guarantee you, I know more about the word that expresses the truth of the law, the spirit of the law, than she'll ever be able to figure out about the letter of the law, unless she does the same thing I do. Go back to its roots and origins. And that's what I'm telling you people. Quit believing me. Quit believing your neighbor. Quit believing the government. Quit believing your mother. Quit believing these attorneys. Do your own research so you know. I don't care how many years she spent in college. She's fucked. William Patrick Wegman, Daniel L. Block, Thomas J. Straka, John J. Bauer-Comper, Nathan Callahan. Nathan Callahan is now a senior judge. I believe he was a senior judge here not too long ago as well, when he presided over the case as well. Multiple presiding. Presided over the arraignment, wherein I clarified the distinction, the difference, giving supplemented data elements that he refused to enter into the record as a judicial officer who was supposed to be neutral and independent. A forum within the United States Postal Service comprising of the administrative law judge, the judicial officer, and the the Postal Service Board of Contract Appeals. He was contracting. He knew it. Took me 7 years to figure all this out, folks. He's fucked. James D. Coyle, Andrew Abbott, Matthew Boland, Heather Feldkamp, Mary Beth Fleming, Dennis M. Guernsey. He's the one I beat the child support and child custody cases with. He can get fucked if he ever wants. Joseph Hasevec, Benjamin Lang. And remember, folks, these aren't war rants. This is a peace rant. It's expressive language. Passionately expressing the anger I feel, F-E-A-L, because of their incompetence or their blatant willingness to violate another living soul in probate courts that have living wills expressing the living word of the living God. Benjamin Lang, Rick Lubin, Nathaniel C. Moonen, Joseph Goodwin Martin, Barry S. Mueller, Emily Roth Richard. A lot of judges and stuff here, huh? Magistrates. These are magistrates here. Kristen B. Skelton, Justin Warwall, Julian West. See, these guys, magistrates, these guys are the ones that preside over the family court cases doing the private 4D contracts. Title 4D contracts, private contractors. Let's go on to the next one. Told you I was going to talk about the merit system and how they work on a system of merits and demerits. Well, again, we're going to find out that it has to do with the administrative law judge. Administrative judges and administrative law judges. So again, violating a living soul, knowing that it's a spiritual event. I want to remind everybody to hit that like, share, and subscribe button for me, please. If you're on Hecklebus, get over to El Perro and do the same. If you're on El Perro, get over to Hecklebus and hit that like, share, and subscribe button. So let's look at this. This is the U.S. Merit Systems Protection Board. And this is an official website of the United States government. Again, you notice how it's got a lock, a combination padlock type thing up here with its internet security name, saying that it's secured. Okay? Learn how to comprehend the language and the symbolism. How a hearing is conducted. Since they didn't hear me orally, now it's going to be conducted in writing, where I get to script the words to be used. The administrative judge, when an employee files an appeal with the MSPB, the hearing official is usually an administrative judge, but can be an administrative law judge. That individual record that they're going by will show that the individual record is in concern with the employee under 5 U.S.C. 552A and 5 U.S.C. 301, where it connects that individual record to a birth registration. Again, a departmental regulation that must be in plain writing, applicable to the Department of Defense. ALJs, administrative law judges are selected for and removed from their own positions under a different set of rules than administrative judges in order to ensure that the ALJs can operate with a greater level of independence. Whereas the administrative judges are administrators, the administrative law judge is an operator. The administrative law judge operates in admiralty. The administrative judges administrate maritime law. And that is to ensure, which is an insurance agreement known as a surety agreement, with a greater level of independence. And again, 32 CFR 1602.4 talks about the selective service is responsible for all administration and operations in the area of the board or boards within its jurisdiction. It's the military and selective service that has jurisdiction. And they operate on the merit system, military merits and demerits, clarifications and declarations. It's already been declared. Jeremiah 1. Some types of cases are required by statute, which is the standby, to use an ALJ. In other cases, a regulation establishes the use of the ALJ because the agency issuing the regulation exercised the discretion given to it by a statute to set forth the rule that an ALJ would be used. The inland marine installation, known as a post office, is the agency issuing a regulation exercised the discretion given to it by statute to set forth a rule that an ALJ would be used. It's already declared. United States Postal Service. And within it, there is an independent and neutral forum known as the United States Judicial Office Department. Again, falling under departmental regulations, Department of Defense. The United States Postal Service, as a registered agent, is subject to the Department of Defense as an inland marine installation. Nearly all adverse action cases, whether undertaken, underwritten, Chapter 43 or 75 of Title V, are heard by an AJ, not an ALJ. Okay? The administrative judge is appointed. The administrative judge is selected. It's a military selection, whereas the appointment is an administrative appointment. For ease of discussion, we will refer to the hearing official as an AJ, even though in some rare cases it may be an ALJ performing the duties. The AJ has the responsibility, 32 CFR 1602.4, the selective service is responsible. So even the AJ in responsibility is still subject to the military service. I'm telling you again, there is no qualified immunity. That pose is false. I will discuss this with any legal scholar in the world. The terms themselves negate it. They are non-mitigatable. They are as set. They have long-standing in reason and logic, which sets forth the letter of the law. To create MSPB's official record of the case. Merit System Protection Boards, it's a board within its jurisdiction, known as the merit system. And it's supposed to protect under orders. That's a protection order. Protection orders are given full faith and credit. I don't know why everybody is denying that. And yet nobody can explain it. I can. But they can't explain it because they have zero comprehension. Conducting the hearing and issue a decision. That's like the citation. It was a citation. It was a scission. It's like rescission, decision. And I remind everybody, the link to the panel is pinned at the top, so feel free to join me. Aaron. I hope you know how to coin your words. So let's get on to the next one. Because I have a redress to make as it relates to the Postal Service, Article 1, Section 8, Clause 17, Article 1, Section 8, Clause 8, Article 1, Section 8, Clause 1, wherein Congress shall lay and collect taxes, duties, imposts, and excises, postal roads, needful places and buildings. And of course, let's not forget 3 and 14 about the commercial person. And every property has an address, whether it's public property or private property, seems to have an address attached, bound to it. And it continues to happen through urban development, where the city expands its residency and puts that number, attaching it to a number, a street name that's securitized by the municipality so it can issue municipal bonds according to the addressing. Attention HUD, REO, real estate officers, contractors, property inspectors, Office of Inspector General, inspecting the property known as shadow property, the record. Watch out. Sovereign citizen scams! Oh no, we got a sovereign citizen. Wait till you hear what they call them. The U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development's Office of Inspector General, HUD OIG. And yes, I made a video about this long ago and stated publicly that the Office of Inspector General is incompetent because the intellect he shows is limited and biased by his vocabulary. And we're going to discuss that again. Advises the public. Is that legal advice? Are you openly making legal advice? I want to see your license to practice law. Oh, you can't show it to me? All you can show me is a certificate. Where's your license? Has it been lodged into the license commissioner's record? Would that be an omission of something proposed to be had when in fact it is not real? Like the United States, there is no such record lodged of a national of the United States because they have no birth registry creating such nationality. Fucking babbling idiots. The public on how to recognize sovereign citizen occupation of a vacant property and the use of false deeds to support Section 8 leasing. This guy wants to put a lot of shit out there, doesn't he? Stinks. It's rotten. Avoid putting yourself in danger or accepting fraudulent documents. Almost everything I fucking receive is fraudulent. Yeah. Did you catch that one? Fraud, you lent. See, you're not the lender. I am. This bulletin explains how to protect yourself as well as HUD's interests. So again, we have a situation where HUD is claiming the interest. Where's the interest of the United States? See, that's the obligations and other securities, right? What is a sovereign citizen idea? What is the sovereign citizen ideology? The sovereign citizen groups are loose associations of anti-government extremists who do not recognize the federal government. I recognize the federal government very well. 5 CFR 575.102. Federal government means all entities of the government of the United States, including the United States Postal Service and the Postal Regulatory Commission. So I need to speak to the commissioner and ask about his logbooks. They believe they are separate or sovereign from the United States. You show me where I'm not separate from the United States. You show me how I'm attached to the United States. Show me how I'm attached to the paperwork. Titus 3:8. Work that is profitable and good unto men. The good work that is profitable unto men, and are exempt from federal, state, and local laws and tax systems. No person shall reside within the state, federal, state, or municipal zones unless they're a federal, state, or municipal officer or agent. Now, those zones are the only places that you can place taxes. Outside of that zone, you have no jurisdiction. Address unknown. No such number, no such zone. They believe the county sheriff is supreme law enforcement officer in the land, and county clerks or registers are the only legitimate elected officials. That's not what I believe. I know the clerk is the one that issues the paperwork that the judge filled out as an order and in those communications all the way up and down the line, it's for the commanding general. Support of the commanding general. They subscribe to a belief in common law and their right to arrest or sue employees of the illegitimate government. I don't have a right to arrest or sue employees. That's an administrative process. They are known for filing nuisance lawsuits or liens against individuals who try to stop their schemes, which have evolved in lender credit card, tax, and loan frauds. They make their own driver's licenses and license plates and sometimes attempt to form their own parallel institutions of government, asserting plenipotentiary powers to create, incorporate, and develop They make their own driver's license plates, sovereign citizens' encounters with law enforcement and government personnel frequently become confrontational and sometimes turn violent. The most extreme example of sovereign citizen violence was exhibited by Terry Nichols, co-conspirator in the Alfred P. Murrah federal office building bombing in 1995. The 2014 standoff between the federal government and cattle ranchers in Nevada also involved sovereign citizens. This is Mr. Ramon Bundy. And even more radical militia groups. The Army is dependent upon private militia. Why are they talking bad about the very thing of the Second and Third Amendment that requires a peaceful private militia to house and quarter them? Because they've already violated the Third Amendment by the address. The Federal Bureau of Investigation and HUD OIG have noticed a resurgence of sovereign citizen fraud in HUD programs. Okay? Let me go turn a light on, folks. So let's talk about the next one. U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development Memorandum of Understanding. U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development Revision Records, Table of Contents. Introduction. The purpose of the Memorandum of Understanding, MOU, is to establish an agreement between the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development and vendor or PHA. Vendor or PHA. All them UCC forms, I've told you they're called Battle of the Forms. You know, like the 1099A, 1099B, 1099, those are vendor forms as they relate to real property, known also as shadow property paperwork. Regarding the development, management, operation, and security of a connection between Salesforce, owned by HUD, and System, owned by vendor or PHA. This MOU will memorialize the relationship between HUD and vendor or PHA, including designated managerial and technical staff in the absence of common management authority. If it's common management according to the law, then it would be, in fact, similarly common law. You fucking dumbass babblers. So let's supersede. None of this Memorandum of Understanding, MOU, supersedes and replaces any previous MOUs made between the parties for the purposes described above. The authorities for this MOU is based on HUD's Information Technology Security Policy Handbook, issued by the Office of Chief Information Officer. You remember a couple nights ago I spoke about the Office of Naval Intelligence as it relates to information. Background: the intent of all parties to this MOU to establish a connection, a bond, and in exchange equal consideration for both parties, one becoming an obligee for the other as an obligor, and that obligor also being an obligee for the other being an obligor himself. So at the time you establish credit, establish yourself as a creditor, you also establish yourself as a debtor. And at the moment you establish yourself as a debtor, you also establish yourself as a creditor. The debt and credit is a matter of an extension of source. Data between HUD's sales source and vendor. HUD requires the use of vendor or PHA system. HUD requires the use of the electronic system. 2006 Electronic Records Act required all departments and agencies to start keeping an electronic record, wherein they convert the definitive paper form to an electronic form. The expected benefit of the interconnection is to allow vendors and PHAs to send data directly. While I'm trying to send things directly to somebody known as data, I've got all kinds of people in the way. They won't enter it into the electronic system for my directive because they have all these other people telling them that I'm a sovereign citizen. So let's get back to how do I recognize sovereign citizens from the previous page. They use elaborate names and symbols, which could include names spelled in all capital letters. Every title has a name spelled in all capital letters. That would indicate a sovereign citizen. Or interspersed with colons. You see your court documents are interspersed with colons, hyphens, or other, quote, odd punctuation, known as concise English. Somehow that seems to be pertinent to sovereign citizenry. Signatures followed by under duress, sovereign living soul, SLS, or a copyright symbol, indicating that a copyright symbol might indicate a sovereign citizen by definition and recognition. Personal seals, stamps, or thumbprints in red ink. Red ink, thumbprints in red ink, seals in red ink, stamps in red ink. Personal seals, stamps, or thumbprints in red ink. They're missing a semicolon. They don't know the proper punctuation. They're the idiot. Reference to the Bible, the Constitution of the United States, U.S. Supreme Court decisions, treaties with foreign governments, or a uniform commercial code number UCC-201. There is no such thing as a UCC-201. You have to reference the main title, enumerated as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. They've added a new section to the UCC, Section 11. Have you done your research and found out that? Or are you still one of these gurus preaching the UCC and still touting just 10 sections? Do your research. Quit believing people. So that when you do your research, you find out supplemental facts that have been added to the record since somebody else's last search. The prefix noble, despite noble aims, as we mentioned in yesterday's video, or the suffix bay or el bay with their name. Brackets around zip codes or other written oddities that can be found in 2 reports referenced in this bulletin. I don't give a fuck what some babbler has to say. I will prove him incompetent. Name spelled in all capital letters. Like I said, titles are all capital letters. That's saying that things with titles are related to sovereign citizens. Things with concise English punctuation are related to sovereign citizen. Signatures followed by under duress, sovereign living soul, or a copyright symbol relating to sovereign citizen. Personal seals, stamps, or thumbprints in red ink. Everybody see that? That look like a red stamp? Does that look like a stamp in red ink? Is the fucking post office a fucking sovereign citizen? Calling me a sovereign citizen? The fucking incompetence is insane. Plain writing. Failure of proper communication skills. Excuse me for my excited utterance. Sovereign authority, all rights reserved. UCC 1-308. Title 4 flag says your swag. Good one. Look at that. That's a civil service flag from the Coast Guard, folks. They're relegating that by your use as if though it's part of the sovereign citizen. Liberty or death, the new Minutemen. Don't tread on me. Good one. Good one. A sample fraudulent quitclaim deed containing common sovereign citizen changes to documents is shown below. Some identifying information has been redacted or replaced with illustrative data. Known all men by these presents, John Henry Doe. And hereafter called grantor. For the considerations hereafter stated, does hereby can't tell what that says. John Henry Doe, UCC 1-329, and it goes to lowercase John Doe. Okay, so let's take a look at 19 CFR 149.3. That's them damn fucking data elements. Wherein one can give a number in lieu of a name and address. Importer record number, foreign trade zone applicant identification number, Internal Revenue Service number, employer identification number, Social Security number, or CBP assigned number of the entity liable for payments of all duties and responsible. Selective Service is responsible for all operations and administration, for meeting all statutory and regulatory requirements incurred as a result of importation. Now let's take a look at that Social Security number. Under 20 CFR 422.103, Social Security numbers. Social Security number. Social Security Administration maintains a record. It's assigned by the Social Security Administration, and they maintain the record. And if they're responsible, again, upon application of Social Security SS5, 18 years of age, you're supposed to be assigned a Social Security, a selective service number as well. Again, that tells us the Social Security Administration is a military operation, promulgating health and human services as benefits through the Social Security Administration by administrating the estate in probate from the day you were born by implying it's a birth registration. The establishment of a person organized and capable of conducting its affairs in public as a federal, state, or municipal officer or agent whose resident presence is deemed necessary by the board. And that whole thing is just entirely false. The importation itself is a false entry. Okay. Let me see if I can find this other one. And we're going to look at Electronic Code of Federal Regulations, Title 31, Money and Finance, Treasury. Remember, the money and finance, money or its equivalent. There's a contract between the Postal Service and the Treasury for the exchange of securities internally. Regulations relating to money and finance, Fiscal Service Department of the Treasury, Subchapter, a Bureau of the Fiscal Services, as it relates to the Bureau of Vital Statistics. Regulations governing securities held in Treasury Direct, Subpart A. Regulations governing securities held in Treasury Direct, Subpart A. Account means a Treasury Direct account as described in Section 363.10. Notice, they are the registered agent along with the registered agent known as the Postal Service. These are the agents you're supposed to be dealing with as trustees. Authentication means confirming that the person accessing a Treasury Direct account is the same person whose identity was initially verified at account establishment. That statement of live birth at the hospital is an instrumentation of paperwork that was securitized through a process of stamps and seals and signatures, many of which were in red ink, some of which were in red ink. Some may not have any red ink, but it's not in the name, but the process, the path, the establishment. Automated clearinghouse, as we spoke of clearing earlier. ACH means a funds transfer system governed by the rules of the National Automated Clearinghouse Association. NACHA provides for the interbank clearing of electronic entries. And if I can't make an electronic entry through my definitive paper form because nobody will accept or allow me to send my definitive paper form along diplomatic channels of notice, then it prevents me from participating. However, beneficiary refers to the second individual named in the registration of a definitive savings bond. So what happens when you order a birth certificate is a certificate of debt of indebtedness is issued. It's evidence of a certificate of indebtedness, which means it's also a certificate of credit. And it's issued in the title, the all caps name of the state of Iowa. It's a title. A converted definitive savings bond, the certificate in paper form, definitive. It has definitions on it. You can see it, you can observe it, you can touch it, taste it, smell it, hear it, or you can see it, touch it, taste it, smell it. You can't hear it. So you have to provide it in a hearing. A converted definitive savings bond or a book entry security purchased through the Treasury Direct system. Pay attention as we read the very bottom part when it comes to the beneficiary. through the Treasury Direct system, registered John Doe SSN 123-45-6789, payable on death. Payable on death. Joseph Doe SSN. So we have a John Doe and a Joseph Doe. There's a name change in there somewhere. But if you try to change the name to a title, that's an error. You shouldn't be doing that either. That's entitling yourself. So what you do is you create, you go through a name change by creating a corporate entity entitled. You use that entity entitlement to help enforce the laws of the United State of the other beings. So we're going to go to the next one. I hope everybody's still hanging with me. I want to take a peek real quick. And again, I want to thank everybody for joining me. Aaron, Sophia, Chris, Five Hut, anybody else out there? I apologize if I don't mention you. I don't see you by name. So we're talking about financial instruments. And we spoke of the HUD authority earlier. And so we're going to look at this one. It says Memorandum of Understanding by and between the Federal Housing Finance Board and the United States Department of Housing and Urban Development. United States Department, or whereas this Memorandum of Understanding establishes the framework for a continued working relationship between the Federal Housing Finance Board and the United States Department of Housing and Urban Development, HUD, in connection with the financing of affordable housing projects using funds from both HUD's Section 202 or 811 programs and the Federal Home Loan Bank's affordable housing program regulated by the FHFB. Whereas HUD and the FHFB recognize that they share mutual interest. So now they're sharing the interest in ensuring that the public interest is served. That's eminent domain for public purposes. They speak nothing of the private. Is served by enabling funds from both the AHB and Section 202 or 811 programs to be used to finance eligible, very low income housing projects, not the people, with supportive services for the elderly and persons with disabilities. Property. Okay, my apologies. I had to take that call and missed it. She's already on another line. Anyway, Very busy women like myself. So anyway, the problem is HUD doesn't want to recognize private communications. Finance development doesn't want to receive private communications. They're all incompetent of Matthew 18, verse 15, going to your brother in private. They insist that I do things through the public mail system as a domestic entity, refusing and denying me to provide diplomatic channels of notice in private through the international forum, the judicial forum, outside of the domestic administration. This is very disheartening that these people are so incompetent, are not competent whatsoever. Let's look at the next one. Memorandum of Understanding between the U.S. Department of Urban Development and the Internal Revenue Service. Internal Revenue Service, another private organization involving revenue of the exclusive venue of federal jurisdiction along those federal postal roads so that they can pose control and entry by title into the lands being used and possessed by a living soul. Let's look at the next one. Memorandum of Understanding between U.S. Department of Labor, Wage, and Hour Division and the United States Postal Service. U.S. Department of Labor, Wage, and Hour Division is what does your workman's comp through your individual record under 5 U.S.C. 301, 5 U.S.C. 552A. And it's only because you applied through Social Security Administration and used the SS5, a certain and deceptive form, where then you were required to sign up for selective service and then were never selected. You took upon assignments based on presumptive appointments, as if though you were one of the administrators. And the United States Postal Service, United States Department of Labor, Wage and Hour Division, hereinafter referred to as DOL, WHD, or Department, and the United States Postal Service, hereinafter referred to as USPS or Postal Service, collectively, again showing their collective agent, referred to as the agencies or the parties partaking in the collection as agents of other people's property. Recognize the value of collaborative. There's that collaborative again, with lab oration, experimenting with their communications. They're supposed to be proficient between the parties to support Service Contract Act enforcement and implementation. To support Service Contract Act enforcement and implementation. And again, the Judicial Office Department is an independent and neutral forum within the United States Postal Service, comprising of the Judicial Office, or the Administrative Law Judge, and the Postal Service Board of Contract Appeals. Contract. And it's because of the use of the selective service number that they are allowing you to operate presumptively as a warrant officer. The agencies are establishing the below communication processes to more effectively and efficiently communicate and cooperate on areas of common interest as it relates to the common law, commonly founded on the scriptures that are common to any particular land, and share information as appropriate. Therefore, it is mutually agreed that this Memorandum of Understanding agreement is intended to memorialize the understandings between DOL, WHD, and USPS that are set forth below. This MOU is a voluntary agreement that expresses the good faith intentions of the DOL, WHD, and USPS. It is not intended to be legally binding, does not create any contractual obligations, and is not enforceable by any party. Their language tells you how to go forth in peace, and you should learn how to use their same language. That way they will get it. Sooner or later, it will trickle down. So if I go forth with this language and I'm going forth and I'm talking to Chance and Kimberly, and they keep closing cases that I open, or keep calling other people and making false claims that I'm a sovereign citizen because I told them I'm not a United States citizen and I'm not a resident. Therefore, they made the claim that I am a sovereign citizen. Where do you get that concept? That's why you get caught in your babble. And I tell you, the intellect is what limits and biases you through your vocabulary. It's Dunning-Kruger effect. You think you know because somebody else said something and you didn't have the wherewithal to go do some research. You just believe them. That's your incompetence. You don't know. And you insist on telling me I don't know. I don't understand what you're saying. Of course you don't. But if you just pass it on to your superiors, you'll find out. I got a sovereign citizen. It's fucking idiotic, sickening, disgusting, psychotic. Let's look at the next one. Remember that labor union? Memorandum of Understanding between the U.S. Department of Agriculture and the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. That birth registration, that's a birth document of an animal. It lists a man on there by name. And it's all a conversion of your agricultural labor through postings of data elements into records that are false. The next one. Department of Justice Archives as it relates to the Justice Manual, Criminal Resource Manual. CRM, Section 2186, Memorandum of Understanding. Investigatory authority and procedures of Treasury and Justice Bureau and the Postal Service. They're denying the federal investigation by denying the diplomatic channels of notice and instead calling local policy enforcers without a current interlocal agreement. And that is the fraud. There's already an investigatory authority for the Treasury, Justice Bureaus, and the Postal Service. So it's the Postal Service Board of Contract Appeals, the Office of Inspector General, as the registered agent. The Department of Justice, as it relates to the bureaus, Bureau of Vital Statistics, and the Treasury, as we saw through the Treasury Direct Registered Agent, for the accounting that was established in your name when you were born by the creation of birth registration. And on that document, you will see the first name, which is a title, and the second name is the beneficiary. I wonder if you order that birth certificate, will it show all capital names, proving that both the state that issued it and the beneficiary are somehow, in some definition, a sovereign citizen. So let's look at those codes, folks. Because again, specifically the Postal Service, as the registered agent for the grantor and holder of the trademark, post office. Offered an instrument, a financial instrument. And they're not allowing for the terms to correct the use of the instrument as I possess it, because they claim title to it and say that that is the law. Legal title, 1/10 of the law is for control and entry. And they're saying they're controlling the entry of my document into their entry system, their electronic system, because they have title to the document that I'm trying to enter. So now they're trying to negate the diplomatic communications with their superiors, proving their incompetence. And that seems to me that it might be laundering money instruments. I don't know. But I'm certainly going to do my research on all this. Let's look at the next one. Engaging in monetary transactions in property derived from specified unlawful activity. Altering that record would be such unlawful activity. Again, under 18 U.S.C. 1519, destruction, alteration, or falsification of records in federal investigations and bankruptcies. The alteration was the alteration of a comment that I made, an invention, fabrication, and fiction, in an oral discussion, consensually conversing with Chance, and he altered what I said and created a record by reporting an incident to the local police office through a dispatcher. And that alteration of that record claimed a sovereign citizen that is full of holes. In that call, the officer would have wanted to come by and identify. Again, they don't understand that the identification, the name and number identify the record. So no matter what they ask, if I give them a name and number, they're going to identify the record, but they're going to use me as if though that's what it's identifying, and they're going to grab a hold of me, when in fact they already hold the record. And by grabbing a hold of me physically and taking me anywhere, that would be kidnapping one of the children of Israel and making merchandise of them. And that is in fact a sentence of death. Let's look at the next one, because it's that term of money that confuses everybody. And I've mentioned this before, kind of like the term animal includes man. This one is limited, whereas the term animal is kind of ambiguous and includes a lot of things. 12 U.S.C. 411, issuance to reserve banks, nature of obligation, redemption. Federal Reserve notes to be issued at the discretion of the Board of Governors of the Federal Reserve System for the purpose of making advances to Federal Reserve banks through the Federal Reserve's agents as hereinafter set hereinafter forth, and for no other purpose are authorized. I want to ask you folks some questions. How many of you gone down and used Federal Reserve notes to buy stamps How many of you use Federal Reserve notes to go down to the local gas station and purchase a dangerous chemical and then presumably put it in a locked container, a gas tank, with a lid on it, and then by definition transported it in a commercial transaction of transferring property from point A to point B under the presumption that you had to present a legal identification to both purchase it and to hop in that happy ass little car of yours and travel from point A to point B. The said notes shall be obligations of the United States for all taxes, customs, and other public dues. So taxes and customs are public dues. It says other public dues. They shall be redeemed in lawful money on demand at the Treasury Department or the United States in the city of Washington, District of Columbia, or at any Federal Reserve Bank. Now, people somehow seem to think that they have to pay in gold and silver, and that's not so. Gold and silver is a mineral, and therefore they can pay you in other like-kind minerals, just like money or the equivalent. So the equivalent to gold and silver today, as you can use the same type or similar types of minerals manufactured and constructed in a different percentage and using maybe different materials, but they're still metallic elements, minerals, and say exchange those coins for a silver coin. You can do the same thing with Federal Reserve notes. You can take a Federal Reserve note to a bank and say, hey, I'd like to change this for 4 quarters. Remember in the pandemic where everybody's running out of change? Wonder why that is. Do you? You suppose there might be a creation of a shortage of coin to exchange? But again, we're talking about exchanges that aren't proper, true, and correct. They're inaccurate. They're false. So let's talk about the next one, if there is one. Oh, yeah, we want to talk about this alteration or falsification of records in federal investigations again, because it says whoever knowingly alters. And again, when I tried to give him information in the conversation to help correct the records, because he was trying to insist that I fall under the administration of domestic mail matter, and was saying that I couldn't ensure my communication to the Board of Governors and the Office of Inspector General because it was domestic mail. No, it's not domestic mail. I'm not sending it with the intent of domestic mail. My intent is international communication through diplomatic channels. You can't make the legal determination to say I can't do that, particularly when you're a post office with memorandums of agreement with many other branches, including the financial situation with the Treasury Direct, as it relates to definitive paper bonds and electronic securities and their conversions and entries, as they relate to the legal title for entry and control, as opposed to equity title, which is possession and use. Destroys, mutilates, conceals, cover-ups, falsifies. Altering what is true is a falsification. And it covers up, conceals, and mutilates the truth. Destroying the people trying to profess the truth, profit the truth, or make a false entry into any record, document, or tangible object with the intent to impede, obstruct, or influence the investigation or proper administration of any matter within the jurisdiction of any department or agency of the United States, or any case filed under Title 11. See, I'm not in the United States, and I'm not of the United States. Their interests, with the intent to impede, obstruct, or influence the investigation or proper administration. The United States is the administration. The Postal Service is an agency that also administrates through the administrative law, using administrative law judges, but has to have a judicial officer to determine whether there's a proper contract through the Postal Service. If that's not there, then any subsequent contract is not valid, because there has to be the true original contract with a judicial determination deemed necessary by the board. The board being the Secretary of Commerce as the chair, executive chair, and the Secretary of State. Remember, the Bureau of Vital Statistics, that's regulated by the Department of Commerce. Secretary of State, that's who you order your birth certificate from. That's who you talk to in regards to the Social Security Administration and all that. The IRS. You're the one making the consular affairs by not seeking the proper counsel. Good evening, Chris. How you doing tonight? You're still muted, brother. There we go. A little bit louder, a little bit closer, please. No, we're still not hearing you, brother. Your mic is way low or something.
Hold on.
Maybe you got something covering the mic. There we go.
Okay.
Much better. Thank you, brother.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you.
Oh, wow. Really?
Yes.
Okay, good. I'm wondering how this works because my speaker is going through the Bluetooth, and I was talking into my tablet thinking that the mic is on the tablet.
There you go.
I think it's on the Bluetooth.
Yes, it would be.
Okay. That's why you couldn't hear me. I had to get closer to the mic on the Bluetooth. How's it going?
Good.
I tried to come in the other night when and chat with you. My computer mic was not working.
Well, I'm glad we got it resolved. So what's on your mind, brother?
I'm actually really feeling very devoted to listening to what you're doing, because I'm myself very concerned with how we're going to deal with the enforcement issues that people are facing regarding all these so-called government corporation contracts. And I've been facing a lot of the same issues that you're talking about with their incompetence and their inability to read and comprehend what has been prescribed in the law.
Yeah, absolutely. It comes down to that comprehension. And that's, the English language is so colored and hard to comprehend because it's an assumption language. And in other words, what I mean is that when we go through these public education systems, they have you do these spelling things. They want you to spell it. And so you learn how to spell it first without learning how it's constructed at all.
Right.
And it's a shame that people walk out of these schools at the age of 18 and don't pick up another book or something, let alone go back and make sure that what they were taught was in fact true and correct.
Exactly.
That's the actual problem, is the communication itself.
The people that run the banking empire, I think they elected to use the Rand Corporation to establish the indoctrination system for the military industrial complex through the school system, and then got rid of the 7 liberal arts and the the accounting and bookkeeping and all these things that folks need to know. And it became a matter of their responsibility to educate themselves and their posterity privately rather than through the public systems. And I think only very few people actually caught on to that when it occurred.
Exactly. That's that private tenant thing. They're releasing the property that they have an investment in the real estate investment trust. And that release is done through that address. That's why you got to go to the post office for the address change. They're the revenuer. They're the ones the revenue happens with, not the Internal Revenue Service.
I'm sure that has to do with the easement.
Absolutely.
And the easement has a property description, and that property description is some company's intellectual property, and they're able to control that contract by that intellectual property description that the tenant in common is using.
Yep, absolutely. I want to welcome Veracid Purana Divine. Greetings.
Yeah. Well, I'd like to have these, engage in these conversations with you, Keith, because I think sometimes if people ask good questions, then it can actually pull the knowledge that you've acquired out for others to be able to absorb that. So,
and I appreciate that. I've said that many times. I need that. I need people up on these panels to help question me, because I can't think of all the questions. I try, I really do, but that outside perspective, that other objective view, is so important, and I don't understand why people stick in their subjection. So
it's a sad thing. My upbringing is I was actually brought up in to be a Jesuit priest, and it's pretty interesting because the Jesuit priests, we were always educators.
Absolutely, that's what we're supposed to be. That's the true benefit, is the reception of knowledge. And if we receive it freely, we're supposed to freely give it. We're supposed to turn around it. So
I feel like the Society of Jesus kind of got very tainted because we seem to have lost that edge where the monks associated with the order are actually going out and sharing that knowledge, that realized knowledge. with the folks. I don't see that happening much.
Yep. Absolutely.
So I appreciate yourself doing that, and because I feel that the Pope and the Order of the Society of the Catholic People, I feel like in general they would like to redeem and reform themselves, but they need good people with good brains to help them do that. So,
yep, they need absolution. In other words, they need the truth, and they need to be absolute about it. And that's what they're not. They hesitate. They're in this colorful language that has taken them so far away from the word of truth. It's pathetic. It's like the comment Joe Moore made earlier. I've got it set up here. It says registered mail as an indication of what I wanted to do was to send it registered mail, but they said I couldn't do it because that's only available for international mail, and that it was being sent to Washington, D.C., and therefore it was domestic mail. And they don't understand that Washington, D.C. has no nationality, and that itself makes it an international mail matter in all cases. That anybody is presuming anything as a United States citizen in dual residency as a resident in the state. It's a simple thing to comprehend, but I feel explain it to you. I can't do the comprehension.
The United States, why it has the strongest military, or it has previously, was the fact that they had such a well-constructed volunteer program, right?
Yeah, it's a national and community volunteer system.
Like until my grandfather explained it to me, he said, like when you go to school, boy, you don't have to say that Pledge of Allegiance because that's not how we are, right? So I never did it. I would just, the kids would sit or stand up and pledge allegiance, but I realized that's the volunteer program right there, where you're like making that verbal mantra affirmation to give your allegiance to that fictional construct, and become a volunteer of their military venue called public school, right? But I don't even, is that still a practice that they do these days?
What's that?
Do they still say that mantra, that Pledge of Allegiance to the flag?
I have no idea. I know they took out civics. I know they took out language arts, a couple other things.
But see, that's the thing, is like when we speak that, that's like putting ourselves in a position of owing allegiance to something other than the divine Father. You know what I'm saying? And that's like their volunteer program.
Absolutely. And I'll show you what that volunteer program is. Like I said, I've done my research, folks. And here we are again, Title 42, Social Security, U.S. Code 12651, Corporation for National Community Service. There is established a corporation for national community service that shall administer the programs established under the national service laws, the selective service, which is responsible for all administration and operations of the board within its jurisdiction. The corporation shall be a government corporation, as defined in Section 103 of Title V. Government corporation. Government corporations means a corporation owned or controlled by the government of the United States. The United States being a corporate entity itself, and therefore it's government of the corporation. Government-controlled corporation does not include a corporation owned by the government of the United States. Again, it's that title as it relates to entry and control. Entered into the record so they can control it. Quit doing it. It creates the legal title that you are using. The legal title they created can't be used unless you do so, and that is in fact your creation. Otherwise, you denounce their creation as abominable. Why? Because it's a matter of a probate estate under administrative courts that's saying you have no will. I'm sorry. Titus 3:8.
The will and testament is what we're the living
will
should with the will and test the mind. Testament.
Right.
Right.
This is a faithful saying that these things I will, that thou affirm constantly, that they which have believed in God might be careful to maintain good works. These are good and profitable unto men. Pure and simple. If you're not going to maintain good works by just wantonly signing off on their documentation without reading it carefully and knowing what it says, then you're the one that's going to listen to babble, believe in it, and use that babble as your own opinion while you sit there and run your mouth lying to everybody. We have to quit this shit. It's despicable, disgusting, psychotic, sick, demeaning, disheartening.
It seems that, the way that this thing was constructed was literally to manage people who had not yet ascended the mind and become intellectually capable of reading and writing and articulating.
Correct.
Right. That it was like,
it's a matter of higher education. And just like I mentioned, that National Community Service, there's actually another code in the code talking about that National Community Service and how it's supposed to be to bring back the ethics of civics. It's one of the specific comments. Ethics of civics. Well, why did you remove it?
In my mind, I'm thinking, well, what they're calling the age of termination, which is connected to that concept of nonage, right? Not being of age of maturity or majority, right? That if we have yet to learn those liberal arts, then how could it be said that we've attained that age of termination and be able to manage the security interest associated with those minor spendthrift Sister accounts? You see?
Yep, and that's exactly what it is a spendthrift. It's a spendthrift trust. What is it? Can't remember what the name of the trust was. I researched it one time. I can't recall it at this.
Sister Act and in that Unum Sanctum Regis and Romanus Pontifex in the original intent of the writing code.
But I'm gonna do it. But I'm gonna do it though, because a tree fell on it last month.
Who's that?
Yeah.
Just in case you might try to burn it down or something or anything.
Is that somebody in your background, brother?
Yeah, I think he doesn't know his mic's not muted.
No, that's there's only two people on panel with me, and the other guy.
Hold on.
How are you on here and I don't see you?
That sounds like King Albay.
Oh, okay.
It does.
No, I'm in a class right now, and I got my mic muted, but somebody was talking, and I was trying to make sure it wasn't me.
Well, it is you.
Oh, they said it is me. I apologize. I don't know how this is happening.
Where are you coming in from? Because I don't see you on my panel, brother.
This is VIII. I got everything muted.
Oh. Well, I'll be darned. I don't know how this is happening.
Well,
because on my
I'm gonna log out.
Yeah, if you want to log out and come back in, I'd appreciate it because it's not allowing me to edit your mic settings and mute you. And it even shows me that you're muted. So I don't know what the deal is there. My apologies. Please come back up. So anyway, as I was saying, there's a code in the U.S. codifications of national and community service. And that one is also in 42 U.S. Code, Chapter 129. Findings and purpose. The National Community Service State Grant Program. Points of Light Foundation. Projects honoring victims of terrorist attacks. And authorization of appropriations. So it's under the Social Security Administration for your national community service as a selective service agent residing in one of those homes with an address. And that's what the appropriations are for the Federal Reserve notes. They're saying you're an appropriate agent authorized under 42 U.S. Code to operate as a reserve agent. What's a reserve agent? It's who they call in when they need military assistance. Militia reserve. We spoke on that earlier as well. So it just seems to me that everything is just a coincidence how I see it, but they don't. And it's up to me to be able to educate them because they're not.
Right. Well,
And
Keith,
I'm not the one that has to be, and I'm not the one that has to be educated, and they are. Funny how this works.
Time out of your life to study their code, and they didn't have the time or take the time to do that, right? So
absolutely, they did not give me equal consideration as it's stated. They have refused to give me equal consideration all the way through. And the equal consideration is money or its equivalent, which means it's equal. And gosh, that's credit. See, they're only allowing for the acceptance of what's called cash and debit. But like I said, if you create a debit, it's also the creation of a credit. So who does it belong to? They're posing that the debt is against Joyce. And that's not so. Joyce is the one that gives everything credit.
Well, that's also the fact that their definition, that when we're dealing with an agent or an agency, when they are speaking and they're using their term you in their realm, that underworld realm means one who owes a debt to the construct, to the empire, the United States and its Crown Corporation owner.
Right. And that's why I say Jeremiah 1:5 is showing that where we're supposed to get the credit. It's through the ordinance and sanctification of the Father which art in heaven as a prophet unto the nations. That's the declaration as set already. Nothing else need be said. All that needs to be done, if need be, is the supplemental verses that support it. And
it seems to me whoever set this up, it seems to me that whoever set this up, supposedly Masonic groups or whatever, had set this banking construct up with remedy, with the remedy, because if you would look at the Bible as a law book, like the remedy is written into there for those that have the intelligence to
discern. Well, if you look at it properly, you'll see the Bible is a a banking
Banking.
instruction for trust operations.
Which is essentially a covenant and a contract.
Right.
For,
Well, it's a matter of speaking in peaceful terms, asserting nothing but that which is true and correct. But when you get involved in situations where you see things that are not true and correct, and you have to correct them, that's the problem. The other people don't understand how it's not true and correct because they put it down and the law says it's got to be domestic. No, it doesn't. You're misinterpreting the law.
Mm-hmm. Lexicographical.
Then they turn around and say, no, I'm not. And then call the police and tell the police I'm a sovereign citizen. Never said any such thing. That's part of the problem with the record is that that's what I've got.
To them, you appear as an oxymoron like that because they're the moron seeing themselves through your consciousness. Every definition of that sovereign citizen seems to have three fingers pointing back at them, Keith.
Yep. Absolutely. Absolutely. Right. All right. Well, listen, guys, it's been 2.5 hours. I know I went over the information fast, but I've got to get back to it myself to look deeper into some of this stuff. I do have a notice out to the mayor. I did call him after the incident at the post office. I did call the International Account Services helpline again. And I've got a notice. I'm sending the mayor a copy of everything I've sent to the Postal Service as it relates to this, as well as a definition for special deposit, as well as my own little writing here to help inform on the situation with the bench warrant for failure to appear for jury duty. And so I'm going to read this special deposit to you first. And this comes from
there may be something where the powers that be have yet to recognize you as the ecclesiastical office holder that you are, because all of these things should really have no effect upon you with your level of understanding.
Well, that's what they're denying, is that I've already established that as a matter of my part of constructing something to be able to transfer anything to it once the other part of destruction is done. The declassification, the clearance, the settlement, and all that. Once that's all done, I've got a place to transfer those supposed credits. And they're not allowing me to do the communication to finalize that set of transfers. So
we'll see that you're as a private citizen and a member of the Society of the Faithful, nothing of that realm should really have much effect on you at all. I'm
supposed to be able to affect it.
Yeah, exactly. As the civilian authority who, under that banking charter constitution for the United States, the civilians are with the authority, and those who are knowledgeable have the authority. But for some reason, your civilian authority position has yet to be recognized. And I can't say why I would think that is, but I think they're just having a hard time adjusting themselves.
Absolutely. To
the understanding that their thing called the civilian authority exists, but only for those who are of the Society of the Faith and with the higher concept of the Christ consciousness and all that. There can be no authority without that.
Absolutely. Sam,
I just, the Bible says we'll be tested for 10 days, right? And that 10 days could last a minute. I think it's just an allegory metaphor, but I kind of see this is our test. and all that. So it's good to see that you're going through it and being on the journey with you here.
Awesome. Sam Gold says it goes TDA account you create and then link your bank to it. I'm telling you, folks, that title that you're placing into the bank is a false title. You need to get out of the banking and start learning how to operate a trust so you can perform your own banking transactions. I'm telling you, you keep handing everything over to an administrative bank, you're going to get fucked every which way but Sunday. That is the problem. You're letting them manage your finances through an administration rather than executing your own stuff. Period. Quit it.
I think there's a lot to be said for the doctrine of Cypress, Keith.
Yes, Cypress doctrine. It may not be perfect, but it's as close as can be.
I do think that the trust, that spendthrift trust was created with the spirit of the Cypress doctrine in the mind of those who created it. And I believe that the intention of that has to be returned to what it is, what it was initially intended to be. You get what I'm saying?
Absolutely. But again, it's the public education system that fails everybody by not allowing them through the curriculum to be educated well enough to comprehend that concept. Therefore, again, we have to go to the scripture to learn that concept because nobody else going to teach you. So again, my people are destroyed for lack of knowledge because mom and dad ain't teaching me.
Right, because if we're not going to use the public debt to make a profit, then we don't become taxable, and then we're fully, through our expression, we live in a charitable way, right? And charity, austerity, and right, we just live that aesthetic lifestyle, right? And I believe that's why that doctrine had to be manifest, because there is a distinction between how people are thinking with respect to, they're thinking for themselves and wanting to use the sin or the public debt for profit, or if they're not of that greedy intention, but rather, of a benevolent intention to love and serve all and God, right?
So let me go over this definition of special deposit real quick. And it says a special deposit consists in the placing of specific kinds of money or property in the possession of the bank with an obligation of the bank to return the identical thing deposited, the depositor retaining title. Keys versus Paducah and IR Company, 1932. In a special deposit, monies as bills in packages, which is what I was attempting to do, just like that 6387 postal form says, provide the post the carrier with a with an addressed envelope and put the money order in it, or put your order in it, your directive, along with the statement of services. So as bills in packages or specie in boxes, on that form it's got boxes, and you can identify the specie. That's one thing that they're not allowing me, is the specie of in credit. Are entrusted to a bank, not to be used, but to be kept safely and specifically returned. Such a deposit of specie or other funds for safekeeping and return creates the relationship between the depositor and the bank of bailor and bailee, just like obligor and obligee. where money is left with a bank with the understanding and agreement that it is to be devoted to some particular purpose. So I specifically gave a directive in the interest of the United States, the purpose, such as to be paid over to some third person on presentation of certain papers. It constitutes a special deposit and is held by the bank as agent of the depositor. Same situation, replace bank with postal service. They are committing to that exact same financial transaction of a deposit that can be made as a special deposit. The distinctive feature of a special deposit is that the identical money is to be kept apart from the general funds of the bank so that it can be returned to the depositor or used for the specific purpose for which it was deposited. So if I give a directive to use it for full acquittance and discharge, then that was the special deposit directive that they use that money for the unpaid balance of the equivalent in credit. The intention of the parties controls. The intention of the parties controls. And in the absence of facts from which it can be found that the parties intended that the fund was deposited for safekeeping and return, or to be devoted to a specific purpose then agreed upon, it would be held to be a general deposit. So if I give the specifics, it's a special deposit, not a general. I knew what I was doing when I made that deposit or tried to make the deposit, and they didn't. I made the specifics, and it controls by my intent, and they can't even state their intent. So, the next one, 1611 print of the King James Version of the Bible, Deuteronomy, the second law, coming after Leviticus, the first law. If a man be found stealing, any of his brethren of the children of Israel maketh merchandise of him, or selleth him, then that thief shall die, and thou shalt put evil away from among you. Coming out of one's jurisdiction to collect a living soul known to be a child of Israel for $350, falsely implying a merchant accounting, would seem to be rather risky. I require risk management mitigation through diplomatic channels of notice. I have already stated I am not a United States citizen, nor a resident. And this statement was in fact altered and entered into a record by a call to the local police and can be found in an incident report made by Chance, a United States Postal Service agent, causing a false record to be created. This is a matter of a state recovery of which the communications are being impeded and obstructed with knowing intent. I am foreign to the United States and all entities of the government of the United States, including the United States Postal Service. I am in fact being denied communication through the proper diplomatic channels of notice with the Judicial Office Department, a neutral and independent forum within the United States Postal Service. So as an agent for the United States Postal Service and an obligation to provide professional communication skills, he denied me the very communication with the neutral and independent forum, the judicial officer, by being biased, and therefore that is the discrimination. That is the fault. That is the cause. of harm, injury, and damage of a bill in a package that is not being serviced according to the service agent and their duties to do so. They are denying not just the offer of an instrument, but they are denying their obligations, duties, and liabilities as well. A neutral and independent forum within the United States Postal Service comprised of the judicial officer, the administrative law judge, and the Postal Board of Contract Appeals. These matters are conjoined as the bench warrant issued by the clerk of court in and for Black Hawk County, located in Waterloo in the state of Iowa. And how are they conjoined? Because everything's in administrative record still. They're refusing to allow me to establish a judicial determination by proper declarations and acceptances.
You hear? I see your lips moving, but I don't hear you, Keith. I don't know.
I don't know how that happened. Every
Okay.
inland marine installation known as a post office is a port of entry, where you're allowed to enter things into the judicial record. That's what they're not allowing. They're not accepting their responsibility to take on the liabilities, obligations, and duties of making the proper entry into the proper record. It's all fucking idiocy. And with that, I'm done for the night. So unless you've got something else to say, we're going to shut her down. I appreciate your coming up. Please continue to keep coming back. I plan on doing this at 8 p.m. Central Standard Time every night, Monday through Sunday.
Keith, I wanted to ask you, have you ever heard of a Guthrie card?
No.
A Guthrie card is that which is manifest at the on that vessel called hospital, and they take a little index card. It's got some markings on it. They put a couple drops of blood on it, and that's connected with the biological registration of that vessel we came in on, called placenta, connected to all the earth substance, right? But essentially, my understanding is that the manifestation of that Guthrie card is actually puts a hex on the DNA with when the blood is added to it, and that's something.
Well, when it comes to the DNA, I want you to think about the term DNA.
Yeah.
You got ribonucleic acid, which is the RNA, but DNA is DNA, and it's defined as deoxyribonucleic acid. So DNA has the RNA in it.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, let's sound this out. Deo, D-E-O, God.
Yeah. Right.
XY, God, the patron. XY, the patron. Rib. The woman came from the rib.
Yep. The mitochondrial DNA connected to her.
O. Type O blood. Did you know that type O negative is the one blood that every other blood type can accept in immunity or in infusions? A plus, B plus, O plus. They can all blood types will accept O negative across the board. Whereas if you've got A positive, you can't use B positive. You can't use A positive or O positive. You can use A positive or O negative.
Right. I recall that. Well, so, I'm saying that I believe that Guthrie card and the record that was established along with it, that was something that was special deposited by the post into the bank, and it actually caused, like, in a sense, like a spiritual cursing.
Well, it caused a warrant to be issued.
Exactly. So, but the thing is that I believe if we would think in terms of this, if mom is abandoning those vessels called placenta, and she's acting as informant, signing on that paperwork, right? Isn't the placenta itself the thing which is the decedent estate, which is dying, in the condition of dying, not dead?
No, you're taking the terms wrong. You're taking the terms wrong. Decedent does not mean dead.
Well, I'm saying this is our IRS is saying some nonsense like this, okay?
No, you're interpreting as that. Decedent does not mean death.
Well, I'm saying that which is now separated from us, which was the placenta that we came in on, right? My understanding is that something is done with that. And that Guthrie card that I was talking about is like a title document that they, right? And then they do a special deposit with that, saying, well, this kid came in and it didn't have anything, so we're going to take the vessel that it came in on, and now that thing becomes the, essentially the estate that's evidenced by what's printed on the back of that.
It really doesn't matter what it is. It's all a presumption, and that means it's false. Pure and simple.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, what I'm trying to think is how do we remove that hex, that curse?
By telling the truth. By telling the truth and never lying again.
Right. Absolutely.
It's repentance. You won't do that again. And when I found out what was happening with the use of the numbers, I told them I would never use that number again, and I'm not going to.
Mm-hmm.
You can't make me.
I'm thinking you're counterfeited. Something it might be good to put that on a like a county record that the parish, like your
that's still creating a public record. You're not supposed to do that. If you're going to make those kind of statements, you do them in a journal that you post publicly as your declaration. That's all it is. It's my declaration. If you have a problem with it and you think that certain things apply to me, you have to prove it. Otherwise, my declaration's already made.
I was looking at the county recorder as a place where, you can, like, kind of point to, your intent to express to the public whatever you're.
Don't do it through the county recorder. That's lodging something into that public record. And they're placing a liability on them. And if you're going to place a liability on them, they're going to place a liability on you. Quid quo pro, equal consideration. Quit involving yourself in their war, and they can't place that liability on you.
Oh, nice thinking. Yeah, I appreciate you saying like that. I have yet to put anything on the county record.
And I wouldn't. The problem is that they're holding a record, and that's legal title saying that they have entry and control when they don't.
Right. Well, I have a wooden file case that I keep all my own manor roll records for my house and my estate.
Yeah, I've got my own file cabinets here too, my own little library going and everything. My own little printing press.
But I have yet to, like, put anything that I have in that record into the public in such a way that it could be referenced by someone else outside, right? And one of the ideas,
that's why I created my internet site.
Right. Okay, that's a nice one. And I heard also that Gutenberg.org has a place for doing public recordings or something to that effect. There's certain sites that have that. I'm just, what I'm saying is, my thinking was previously, because the county is the parish, that might be a good place for putting your stuff in the miscellaneous department. But what you're explaining makes sense to me. But where could a person actually make a public recording that would be recognized?
Again, like I said, on my site, that's an international public record.
Okay.
And nobody has jurisdiction over it because it's a private extension. It comes from a private point of origin. And it's placed into the public venue for its free use, with a disclaimer that you can't use it as fact. I'm not sure if what's on there is fact. You have to go to a source to prove otherwise. It's all there in the copyrights and disclaimers, folks. That's all you got to do. Is let them know that you're not perfect. Again, going back to the Supreme doctrine, and that there might be mistakes, but you're not liable for the mistakes. That's all it is. So as we look at decedent as a noun, 1730, it says dead person. Now, as it says dead person, it means a person which can never live. There is no life. So it doesn't mean that there was something living and it died.
Oh, okay.
It does not mean that. So when they say to die, you must first have lived in order to die. The person never lived. Okay. So let's take.
Is that what I see? And then is not the word death actually indicate a condition of a civil death rather than a physical?
No. Again, it's the term death, just like breath, just like health. It's not health. It's heal thyself. They forgot part of it. Okay. Why? I don't know. That's what they forgot, was the why.
Right.
Okay?
Like heal comes from like Helios, which is the sun, right? To be.
Well, it comes from different sources, and you get to pick and choose. You get to adopt the form that you wish to use to color your palette. Okay. Here's the saying, momente mori, momente vivere. Use an exercise about death to help you live a better life. What it means is, if you know death, then you must know life. So in order for a person to know death, they must know life. That person doesn't know life. It can't know anything. It can't do anything. It is in the paper. It can't come out of it. It can't come off of it. Once it's bound in the paper, it's bound for life in the paper.
So the paper is your flat earth then, that only persons exist in paper. So we
that's not, earth and flat and globe never come into it.
Well, I'm saying, like when we're reading those pieces of paper, in a sense, that's the word with an L in it, right? the world with that, right?
The letters.
The world is manifest by thoughts and words and spelling.
Well, it's manifest by letters. People that let things happen.
But the world is not. It's not the soil that we stand upon. The world is the construct that was created in the minds of men. My understanding is that way anyway.
It's what we manifest. And again, it's by the letters. We're the ones that let things happen. Evil only happens, or bad things only happen because good men don't do anything about them. We're the letters. Think about it.
Yeah.
Anyway, I really got to get going. I got to go get something to eat. It's late, and I'm still going to be working on this hours on. So I do want to thank everybody for joining us. Veracid, you got anything to say before we go, or just soaking it in for now?
Yeah, I'm just soaking it in for now. Appreciate everything. Appreciate you.
Awesome, brother. One last final reminder, everybody. Please hit the like, share, and subscribe buttons, and get this information out there. There are donation buttons for PayPal down in the details section. If anybody wants to share some love, I could always use it for now until this does get sorted out. I'm not rich, but I'm not poor either. So it depends on your terms. And I'm just saying I could really use something right now. So God bless. Remember, I love you. I really don't give a shit whether you love me back or not. So think about that, and quit believing me. Quit believing the neighbors. Quit believing the government. Quit believing your mother. Do your research so you know. Go ahead, brother.
Thank you. Have a great night.
You bet. Anytime. Yes, Wobbly. Press all the buttons. Press them all. Press them all. Press them all. Express themselves. Have a good night, everybody.